Welcome back, everyone, to the final video in the series of me rating the cards. I do want to mention that this time around, I was focusing on rating cards, especially for the sealed environment when you're opening six packs. But in the future, I plan on making it more geared towards draft. This is just a new set and a new game, so I wanted to focus on the simpler thing of the six pack pre release environment. But going forward, when I do this for the next set, I will be focusing on doing it for draft. But to go over the ratings for the neutral cards, the S's are the things that pull us to the class. We won't really see that because, again, they're just neutral cards, right? So they're going to be very medium cards, which is nice. And you will see the neutral cards are, on average, like pretty medium. It's nice. And then, yeah, A and B are the good cards. C are playables. D are cuttable or kind of hard to use. They're niche. And F is just too terrible or too niche. I also do want to mention, just because I give a card an F, sometimes we do have to put F cards in our deck. It's just that we don't want to be putting them in our deck. You guys know, if you've watched my other videos, that I'm pretty against upgrades in general. Obviously, upgrades do have their place sometimes, and sometimes you have so many F cards that you'll choose an upgrade over something else. But again, I personally don't like playing upgrades. Would be perfectly fine never ever having any in any of my pre-release decks. So I also want to mention that I plan on doing a post reflection of my pre-release ratings. I am playing in 4 pre-releases and I will document how I do. I will show you guys the decks that I play and we'll talk about how things went based on, the ratings that I am going to follow for myself. But without further ado, a so longer introduction than normal, let us talk about the cards. So we're going to start with the bad guys, and first up we have ATST, which is a 6 resource 6/7 unit with Overwhelm. So right away we see this card has really good stats. It's on rate, which almost never happens, and it has Overwhelm, which I don't think is that much of a keyword. I think you can get a couple extra points of damage. This coming down at 6 though with these stats is a pretty good card. Um, I'm just going to give it the rating of a C though, but I could see being pushed towards B. I think it's just a playable card, all in all, because it doesn't do anything too special, but like it does have good stats, but it's like the stats that it should have. I guess its only downside is just really expensive and it doesn't interact with the board right away. So if you're a little bit behind, this card probably will not help you catch back up. This one is a starter card, so let's move on to Cell Block Guard. I do really like this card. It's another playable. So we're going to get the rating of C, but it is a 3 resource, 3/3 with Sentinel. We're just going to play this card in our deck. We're not going to be too excited. It'll probably get resourced out all the time, but, it can come in a pinch as it does have Sentinel. And, you'll probably get one of these in your 6 packs almost guaranteed. These neutrals will come a lot, so you can be glad that you'll probably at least get one Sentinel in your packs. Next up, we have a completely trash tier card. We have Galactic Ambition. It's 7 resources to play a non-good guy card from your hand for free, but then you take damage equal to its cost. So, I mean, if you're at full health, you could pay 7 to play a 10 drop, I guess, and cheat 3 resources. Has a nice hyperspace, but you don't want to take 10 damage, and you're not going to do this to play something cheaper. So, you're at least taking 8 damage to play this card. That's pretty crazy. I don't think the environment is good for this. That is way too much damage to take. A third to a fourth of your life is just insane. So this is a straight up F, and it might actually be, if not, yeah, no, it probably is the worst card that you could possibly play in your deck. Next up, we got General Veers. He's a 3 resource 3/3 that is the leader for his class. So all other Imperials get +1/+1. The Rebels have this card too, and they're both going to be Bs. This is a B card. It's a 1 below rate in stats, but definitely makes up for it. In limited, it's a little bit harder to remove cards in general. Just as I always say, removal is a premium. So this thing could stick around the board, and even if it only gets like +2/+2 advantage, like that's a pretty strong card, right? And just the threat of this living for a very long time is very annoying for your opponent. So very good. We'll put this in all our black decks. Sadly, we can't play this as a starter card. Next up, we got Maximum Firepower, which has a sick hyperspace. It's 4 resources for one of your units to deal its damage to another unit. And then if you have a second Imperial unit, you can deal its damage to the same unit. Excuse me. I really wish this card went to 2 different units, but sadly, you have to pick the same one. It does like help you kill it, I guess, because you get to combine 2 powers. Like a 3 and a 3 is 6, and that's like pretty basic, attack power. So I think this thing can do like 6 damage at least, 5 to 6, and then it could obviously scale above that. So maximum firepower probably does kill something every time, and because it does do that, it is premium removal, even though it costs 4. It does have like this condition where you need to have units on the field, but this is going to be a B. You're going to put this in every bad guy deck you're playing. You need removal. Next up, we have Snow Trooper Lieutenant. Um, he is a 2 resource 2/2 Imperial Trooper. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. So this is a good example of a card you actually don't really want to play on 2 resources on turn 1, but something you can play, but you'll be pretty sad if you play it. So if you played it on 2 resources, it's probably a D card. And if you play it like on 4 resources with another 2 drop, or you use something else with your mana, maybe it's like maybe a B, but probably not really. This is a low C card. It's just playable. It helps you if you don't really have any low cards, but it kind of does something else. I don't think its effect is that crazy or anything. Next up, we have TIE Advanced. I really like this card. It's a 4 resource 3/2 space unit, and it gives 2 experience tokens to another friendly Imperial unit. This card is also in Rebels. I almost want to give them both A's, but this is going to be probably a high B card. Why is it a high B card? Well, it's a space unit. It's what? A 4 should be a 4/5, so we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, we're pretty below stats. We're 4 below stats, but we're making up for it by immediately giving the 4 stats to something else. So as long as we have another unit, we're neutral. But those stats going on to something else means the damage is right away. It means just protecting a high priority target. And we're also putting a space unit in the field. And as you guys know, space units get +1 to um, their rating because they're space units. They're better, they're evasive. It's easier to finish games with space units than ground units. If you guys don't know why, it's because leaders are on the ground. So I get a free unit on the ground. I don't always get a free unit in the space, right? So we like our space units. This card is a B, but a high B. Next up, we have a TIE Fighter. This is an example of a card I really don't want to play. I truly think that people should be trying to play Vader. I think he's the strongest leader by far. He's the only leader I gave an S to, and him being able to do 1 damage just kills this card immediately. If your opponent plays a 1 drop in tandem with you playing a 1 drop, you just lose this card for free, which feels really awful, and it's hard to play around. I will say, if you're playing Tarkin and green, this card becomes like a B to an A in your deck because you get to play it on turn 1 and give him the token right away, which is very, very, very strong to get a 3/2. You still have to play around Vader in that instance if you don't have the initiative, which sucks. But this card gets a lot better in Tarkin. Otherwise, it's probably just a D card where you're cutting in, and if you can, but this you'll see this a lot in decks just because there's not room to cut cards all the time. And the last bad guy card is Viper Probe Droid. It is a 2 resource 3/2 with a sick hyperspace. It like literally looks like a brand new card, and has practically no effect. You gain a little bit of information. Mostly, you can see if your opponent has an open fire in hand. I'd say is probably the most relevant thing when you play it. But obviously, they're drawing 2 new cards, so they could draw it anyway. But this is just solid stats, right? You're going to play this card. It's a C. It's a really good example of a playable. It comes down on turn 1, and you have a 3/2. Great, right? That's all it needs to do for it to be playable. All right, guys. Next up, we have the good guys. Looks like we're going at a good pace, so we should not go to 50 minutes, which is really nice. First up, we have Alliance X-Wing, which is a 2 resource 2/3 space unit. So the stats gives it a C, and since it's a space unit, I'm going to bump it up 1 to a B. You much rather have this than a 2/3 in the ground. So for that reason, we're giving it a B. You want to put this card in your deck. This is a starter card. Next up, we have Fleet Lieutenant, which is a 3 resource 3/3. This mirrors the Imperial card. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's a Rebel unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. I'd say this one's a little bit better than the other one. The other one's a 2 mana 2/2, and I think a 3 for 3/3 is actually better. Mostly because 2/3s exist, and 2/3s, just eat them. Obviously, 3/4s exist, but not as many there's way more 2/3s than there are 3/4s. So I think this card is actually has much better stats than a 2/2, and I think its effect is much more relevant on 3 resources because you get to attack with that unit that you played on turn 1, where the other one has like some awkward timing, right? So Fleet Lieutenant, because it costs 1 more, but the same effect is actually going to get a B. This is a much better card. I think it comes into line a lot more than the 2 mana 2/2. So we do like Fleet Lieutenant. Next up, we have the General. I think this General is worse than the other General because it costs 1 more. So you're going to go back and forth on these, right? Which is pretty fair. But it's still a solid card, right? It's a 4 resource 4/4, so 1 below stats, but immediately gives things +1/+1. This card is still a B. And as you guys are noticing, these ratings are pretty good, right? Like these generic cards are pretty good cards, or at least they're playable, which is exciting to see. And I think they did a good job making these. We don't have to feel bad that we're putting them in our deck. They can actually serve as a foundation. So the General is good. Please put him in your deck. I have no idea why Lando's here, but Metal Ceremony is a 0 cost event. Give an experience token to 3 rebel units that attack this phase. Even if you hit it, you had to attack with all your units first, and then for some reason they're all still alive. I don't know. It sounds like you're super winning at that point, right? The +3/+3 is actually not even that relevant for a whole card. Um, so it sounds like you're already winning. This card is really bad. Really bad. It's not worth it to give to anything less than 3 units too. I know it costs 0, but it's not worth a card, and it's not worth even thinking about considering. So this is an F, another example of a really, really bad card, um, which is good because Black had one of those too. All right, next up we got Rebel Pathfinder. It's a 2 resource 2/3 Rebel Trooper with Saboteur. Uh, and yeah, this is a playable, right? For a 2/3. That's the kind of card we want in our deck. Well, it's the kind of card that we're going to play in our deck. Not necessarily want, but we're going to play it. We want to see it, obviously, on turn 1. But yep, just an example of a C card playable. Next up, we have Regional Sympathizers. It is a 4 resource 3/4 Rebel unit that has Restore 2. This card is very understated, right? It should be a 4/5, so it got hurt there. But it has Restore 2, which is not irrelevant. Maybe it gives it like a quarter to a half a point back up. But even though it's this understated, this card is still going to be a playable. I don't actually see us cutting Rebel Sympathizers that much. But like if we have a strong amount of C's, B's, and A's, like this is on the lower end of C, and this is like the first cuttable C. But this card is playable because it goes up to 4 defense and it can trade with a 3 cost. But I'm not very excited about Regional Sympathizers, even though it has Restore. Snow Speeder is a 5 cost 3/6 unit with Ambush, which I really like to see. Because it has the Ambush tag, we're going to give it a B. I do want to be playing Snow Speeders. And then also has this also crazy other tag that says on attack, exhaust an enemy vehicle ground unit. If you get to ambush, kill something, and exhaust another vehicle because you have the initiative, that is way, way high tempo. Which, can really turn this card into an A feeling when you play it. I think on average, you're going to get about a B's value worth of a card. And so Speeder is a B. Wing Leader is a 3 resource 2/1. We saw the spaceship already, but it costed 1 more. I do think it coming down a turn earlier is a bit stronger, but the 1 HP makes me really sad. We're still going to give it a B. Giving 2 experience tokens to a 2/3. It's actually kind of nuts. Having a 4/5 all of a sudden is pretty crazy. And you guys are like, oh, you get the same value from an upgrade. Well, this is a body still. My opponent still has to deal with it. If they're not playing with Vader, which they should be. If they're not playing with Vader, though, it's really annoying for them to get rid of it. And yeah, so I do like the Wing Leader, and we're giving it a B. It's also a space unit. Last up, we got the cool spell for white, which is a lot better than the black spell. You can look at the top card of your deck. You may play it. It costs 5 less. And also, if you're about to lose the game, you can play it for free instead. This card is cuttable. It is niche. It is like all of the above. Let's just say you play it on turn 3. Sorry, turn 2 with 3 resources. And your deck doesn't have many big things, so you're probably not going to hit a big thing, and you hit a 5 cost. Like that's kind of crazy. Like that's more than kind of. That's like really insane, right? But let's say you hit a removal spell, and your opponent doesn't have any creatures. Okay, super sad, right? Let's say we hit a 2 cost. I just overpaid for it. Man, this is a high roll card. I do like the high roll potential. Like I can only give this card a D because of its nicheness, and I don't want you guys to think that C playable, put it in all my white decks. I wouldn't do that, but if your deck is constructed where it's pretty cheap, maybe you only have one thing that costs more than 5. You can really consider this card, and maybe you have like 1 to 2 events, so you only have 3 misses. The times you don't miss and you hit a 4 or 5 cost, it's going to feel really, really good. But you'll also just straight up lose the game when this whiffs most of the time. So do keep that in mind. It is very, very gambly. It is called a gamble it. Yeah. So just a D. It's not going to be an unplayable card because it can do very insane things. All right, now I got the neutrals, and there was really no good way to search. I'm going to come up with a better way to present all the cards next time. But I'm a new channel, and I really wanted to focus more on the content rather than making my stuff look really pretty. The more videos I make, I'm sure you guys will notice an improvement of quality and what everything looks like. But I really appreciate you guys giving me a shot, and I'm really excited with the views I'm getting already. And so thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you. But yes, so we'll give Confiscate. It is a 1 resource effect. I don't seem to see a text on this card, so it looks like it's just 1 resource and it doesn't do anything, which is interesting. I guess I wouldn't pay 1 resource to do anything, so I guess this has to be an F. Yeah, an F. All right, moving on. We have a Carillion Freighter. It is a 5 resource 4/4. Oh, good. It says text. It's a Sentinel. This card is playable. It's 1.5, 1, 2 below, right? It should be a 5/6, so 1 and then 2. 2 below, 3 below, but we are a space unit, so we get to go 1 back up. We have Sentinel, we get to 1 back up. This is, a lower C card, but you guys will notice that we don't always have enough space units, and this is a space unit that we can run in any deck we're playing. It also has some protection. A lot of space units sit at 3 attack as well, so this actually could defend us. But again, excuse me, sorry, it's just a lower playable card. Becomes way more valuable the less space units you have in your deck. Next up, we have Frontier ATRT. It is a 4 resource 3/5. This is one of the best neutral cards. While you control another vehicle unit, gains ambush. All right, so while we control another vehicle unit, this card's like almost an A. Like it's very, very strong. If it just comes out as a 4 mana 3/5, it's playable then. And for that, I'm going to give it a B. Sits right in the middle. Sometimes it's going to have ambush. It's going to feel insane, and other times it's going to feel like a solid stat body. It's only a little bit underrated. So, do like this card. Next up, we have Restock. This card puts 4 cards in your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So technically, if you have 2 of them and they never got milled together, you go infinite with cards, which I do see as a game design flaw. This card should like banish itself or something after being played. Could be a problem, I think, one day. So you heard me say that first, but for pre-release, that's not necessarily a problem at all. It's not a problem at all. This card's an F, but nice to have. An F, but nice to have if your opponent's playing some sort of mill for some reason, and you are playing a best 2 out of 3 format. Like you could just slot this in and never lose to mill because it's an extra 5 cards, right? 1 for putting this in and 4 more in your deck. But also mill in like pre-release is super hard at best 2 out of 3 because in game 2 you could just put in a bunch of cards outside, your deck. So I don't know. It's not good, guys. Like I could talk about restock in all the weird niche ways, but just don't really think about it. It's an F. But its hyperspace is cool. It has these added colors that get in, like that barely are shown here. So the hyperspace is a completely different card, and you should really want the hyperspace version. Next up, we have Underworld Thug, is a 2 resource 2/3 that actually has a blank text box, and this card is perfectly fine to put in your deck. It is playable. Sadly, it has the Underworld tag, so we're not going to be playing any synergies along with that. And the final card, guys, and I mean the final card. And before we talk about the final card, just know that I plan to probably literally right after this, I'm going to go into a mock pre-release and I'm going to go through my thoughts and feelings about, excuse me, how I would make the deck. So you guys can look forward to that immediately, that you'll probably watch first because of YouTube algorithms. But anyway, this is a 3 resource, 2/3. Has raid 1, so while attacking, it's a 3/3. If you control a trooper unit, this unit costs 1 less to play. Okay, let's say I play a trooper unit on turn 1. On turn 2, I play volunteer soldier. What am I doing with the extra resource? It doesn't come with any tags, so I can't use Vader or anything. I feel like a lot of its text box is empty, and for this, I'm going to give this card a D. I think it's just below playable, and I think we're going to cut this card more often than we'll play it. But again, it can go in any deck, and if you need a 3-drop, like if you just don't have many 3-drops, like this can fill that slot. And it's not unplayable, right? Like this can be in a deck. And again, really nice colors. I feel like a lot of yellows get added from dropping the border. And that does it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you watched the whole series. You got to see it all together and watch me grow. Again, this is the first set, so my ratings could be a little off, but I would call myself a very strong limited player. I play a bunch of other games, and I tend to do very well in the limited environment. So that's why I decided to focus on limited and give you guys my senses on what it is. I think I'll have much stronger opinions going into set 2 after physically playing with the cards. But yeah, either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos, go ahead and like and subscribe. Otherwise, peace, guys.